Welcome back to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports and sports gaming in your ear every single Wednesday night live at 8 p.m. Eastern, slightly a little bit late here and there. And we also are Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern for your podcast needs. If you got an app, you got a podcast, we're available for you. My name is GoodGameBro. I'm one half of this podcast. And the gentleman over there, well, actually, our first special guest today, that's Mick Foley. Mick Foley, hello. Mills couldn't be here, but Mick Foley's here. Mills, how are you? Or Mick Foley, how are you?
No, Mick Foley's beard is nowhere near this. This is what's called cultured. This is shaped. You realize the whole reason I switched this setup was because now you can see just how clean the beard is. Be jealous.
And you say that I'm the one with an ego on this show.
Listen, do I speak any falsities here? Is the beard not perfect? The symmetrical nature of the gray in the beard, which I have now, look at this beautiful beanie. I am now, get ready. You ready for this? Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. I'm a jogger guy now. I went out. I actually got, you ready for this? Under Armour and Nike Tech joggers that fit me.
Those are clutch.
Perfect. That's what I'm saying. They actually, I was wearing, I had joggers before, but they never fit. And I was always like an athletic pants guy, not like a sweatpants, but like runners and stuff.
Sure.
Joggers might change the world for me. Joggers might change the world for me. Seriously. Yeah, no. So I'm really, really happy with the fit. It makes the apple bottom curve in such a way that, just saying, I don't have any problems in my ample backside.
Jesus Christ. Well, other than stare at yourself in a mirror in your joggers, what did you do this weekend, Mills?
Honestly, not a whole lot. I just kind of chilled finally. I will say I reinstalled EA. Well, it's not EA anymore, just UFC 4.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot how good it was. I forgot how much fun it was. And at this point, it has such a great roster. The gameplay updates have been amazing. I have completely forgot what my I forgot how to wrestle. I forgot all of my ground game. I went back to the tutorials where they put the arrows on the screen and stuff. I was like, yeah, I was down bad.
I'm not surprised at all. That game, I think, obviously that game has incredible depth to it, right? The controls are great. All different things are great. But every time I go back to it and I'm just messing around with a stand-up game, it just makes me that much more excited for a fight night revival of some sorts. I honestly need a fight night game after playing that stand-up again, so I hope they bring that back.
Which we've actually heard is possibly a thing. Yeah, we talked about it earlier this year, or I guess late last year. So, other than that, man, I'm gonna say for the first time, because a story just came out recently about Oriole Park doing their first major renovation for the size of the field. They're moving left field back. For the first time since early December, I really started missing off-season baseball. I really started thinking to myself, there's been no moves. We keep talking about how, we keep hearing about how the players are going to be probably amping up. Considering, let's be fair, the players, the last two collective bargaining agreements have probably taken the worst side of the stick on that one. The owners have essentially dominated them, and the owners have already kind of hinted that they don't want to go like 94 was. 94, when there was a strike, the owners don't want to do this. When they got back on the field, it was because they half-assed the deal. They just try to get people back on the field as much as possible. And Manfred wanted people off because it was December and nothing happened besides the winter meetings. They wanted to lock out during off season where nothing was going on. I don't think he expected when this started. I really don't think he's a terrible commissioner.
Amen.
All right. So I'm not defending him. I feel like he didn't think it was going to go this far. And it really feels like the Players Union, which is the best union in the United States, not just in sports, it is the best and strongest union in the United States. I think they really want to make a stand here. And I'm starting to worry. I know we're in January. They're meeting this week, apparently. I'm starting to worry this is going to start stretching the season. So this weekend and this week, really, when I started hearing Orioles news, I was like, man, I'm really starting to feel it now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want it to go into the season because of how it impacts players, right? And obviously fans, especially young fans, right? Baseball's a game that needs to keep growing the game and allowing personalities to thrive, despite the inept or how inept their commissioner is
For sure.
in that sense, of Rob Manfred. But I feel like in a way it needs to bleed into the first month of the season, right? I think there needs to be some level of urgency from not the players already know what they essentially want. I think the players are willing to concede some things to ownership, but they have things they want to obviously stand by.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the owners need to have that like lemon booty moment where they're like, oh, wait, we're losing potential revenue.
Right.
We have this stadium that people aren't coming into because we have no baseball games. Like, I need some level of that so that players can really get their fair share. Because baseball, again, is while the MLBPA is fantastic and they do, I think, a really good job of staying unified, they also have been just absolutely screwed over, to your point earlier, the past few collective bargaining agreements, and it shows. And players need a little bit more, I guess, not ownership, but you know what I'm trying to say by ownership.
Yeah.
They need a little bit more that they can drive it. I think in those arguments.
I do think long term, the longer it goes, the better it is for players. And I'm not talking about like the small, the bit players that are playing for league minimums and stuff like that. I do think the longer it is, the better stance they're going to have, because the owners are going to start siphoning and hemorrhaging money from missing games, especially coming after the year where they had COVID, where the pandemic essentially shut down a lot of baseball in terms of fanship. So is what it is. Tell me about you though. Like what's going on your weekend? I hear there's a lot of gaming going on. Your Instagram is on fire these days with just like pictures I would expect that like JC Penney's coming out of it.
Yeah, man. So this week was actually my daughter's 4th birthday, so I'm officially a super old. I'm not even old anymore. I'm just super old at this
Welcome
point.
to the
So
club.
I'm in the same club as you now, Mills. But yeah, man, my daughter turned 4, and I don't know when she went from this like, it feels like the blur from her going to 2 to 4 is just like unreal. Like the amount of like development kids do between that age is wild to me. And so she went from just being this little girl who's, her vocabulary was like so to this girl who's like making fun of me and calling me old and like playing tricks with me, hiding behind doors and scaring me and stuff. And I'm like, how are you this old? But yeah, so other than crying over like how old my daughter is getting and how crazy that is to me, I've been playing a lot of Super People. Dude, Super People is essentially the spiritual successor to PUBG.
Mm-hmm.
PUBG was, for its time, a fantastic game, but it was a buggy mess that was unbelievably frustrating. But still, winning in PUBG was like one of my favorite experiences in a battle royale. Super People is like PUBG with superpowers, but in a way better state. It needs some optimization, but again, it's still like in a closed beta test. But it's the most fun I've had in a game, despite not winning nearly as much as I do in Warzone. So I'm playing it literally tonight. Like, I genuinely have loved that game. That's like taken over what I've played right now.
I saw there's like, is it minerals or supplies? Like I saw iron ore at some point. Like what is the mining purpose of that?
Yeah, so it's cool. So you'll get a weapon, right? And they have like similar to Fortnite, how Fortnite has like a gray, a green, a blue, a purple,
right,
sort of like a mythical or whatever. There's different tiers to the weapon. And the tiers of the weapons essentially do more damage, right? So a gray is the least amount of damage. The like gold, whatever color, orangish, whatever color, that's the most damage that weapon can essentially have. But you have to collect like if you have an SKS, you have to pick up like iron ore. You got to find that on the map, and you can sort of have it searched, and it'll tell you like, oh, it's 150 meters away. You got to go over there and get it. Then you can sort of combine that. Then you might have to get like a magnifying glass or a compass or whatever. And it adds a fun meta game because again, in battle royales, part of it's looting, part of it's sort of the RNG, but then also you get that ability to like, oh, if I like take a little bit of time and don't go into this fight, I can level up my gun a little bit more, which is going to help me out for the end game. So it's a whole other level of strategy. And it's been a blast, man. It's one of my favorite BRs that's released recently.
It's definitely one of those games that the second I saw it in the PUBG feel to it, I'd actually said to myself recently that I kind of miss like the PUBG feel to games. That was essentially, I think that was pretty much the BR that kind of blew up BR, right? I mean, Fortnite,
one.
Yeah, Fortnite, but I mean, the first one that we saw mostly in content creation was PUBG, so.
Yeah, Arma 2 was probably the first BR I ever played. There was a mod for that, but then from that came like PUBG, H1Z1, Fortnite, and then the tidal wave open at that point. So
one last thing I do want to bring up, because I'm extremely excited about this. Another reason that I feel like the Xbox Ecosphere stands head and tails above the PlayStation, even though I love my PlayStation, don't get me wrong. Ubisoft Plus is coming to Game Pass.
Oh yeah.
And to be clear, it's not being a part of Game Pass like EA Play. It's a $15 upcharge, but that's the exact same charge they put on PC for the entire library. And it's not just the entire library. You get the deluxe edition of the entire library with all of the DLC covered. That means Division, Division 2, all of the Assassin's Creeds, all of the Far Cries, all of that. Everything that was on Ubisoft Plus on PC is now going to be available on Xbox for $15 a month. That is a massive thing for me. And again, as somebody who is extremely excited for Rainbow Six Extraction coming, I believe it's next week. By the way, that's coming to Game Pass. Not to Ubisoft Plus. It is coming day one to Game Pass. A AAA. It's a PvE co-op, so I know they don't hold it as high for themselves as Siege, but I am incredibly excited for that to come out. I saw some gameplay on Twitch for some early access. Bro, it's like Rainbow Six Siege, but with alien monsters running around. It's like this combination of Siege and, I don't know if you've played it or not, there's a game called GTFO that is sort of the same idea. It's like that PvE environment. I'm getting too far. I'm going off on a huge tangent. Let's talk sports here. I'm just really excited for this, and I'm super excited that Ubisoft Plus is finally coming to a console, because that's one of my favorite, in terms of developers with games that I play, one of my favorite developers in terms of that. So I might even go back and, play through Division 2 again. But talking about Division 2, let's talk about Division 1 in the college football.
What a segue.
Playoffs, yeah! What a man. I see. It's almost like I do this for a living. What's going on? Chat says Mills is in the weeds again. Yes, sir, I am. So Georgia beats Alabama 33-18 to win the national championship of the college football world. They were a 3.5-point favorite already. I actually thought Alabama was going to win this game after seeing some of the things that had happened throughout the season, and Alabama pretty easily pushing Georgia aside. A lot of things went into this game, though. I thought Alabama struggled offensively in terms of their game plan. I question Bill O'Brien's usage of Brian Robinson. I question. Wait, what is it? Wait.
Bill O'Brien, I'm just so frustrated that Bill O'Brien keeps getting jobs, right? He butchered that offensive game plan of the national title game, and then now he's up for getting hired potentially by, he's getting interviewed by the Jags and some other teams.
Yeah.
Stop hiring Bill O'Brien.
And he's the favorite for some of these jobs in the NFL. And I know Brian Robinson ended up with 22 carries, but he was effective, I thought, early. And Bryce Young was very obviously not, especially losing. Well, injury-wise, they were down their number one receiver coming into the game, and they lost the top receiver of the game midway through to an ACL, Jameson Williams. I just don't understand the offensive game plan. It makes me feel like, and I know this isn't true, but it makes me feel like Bill O'Brien is trying to be too creative or trying to be too much of the genius behind this. Nick Saban is a fantastic recruiter. He's an unbelievable football coach. The fact that Bill O'Brien is running that offense is a travesty. And they almost booted it to Cincinnati a couple times before they finally started leaning on Robinson to run the ball. I don't know why Alabama got away from that game plan.
I can tell you why they got away from that game plan. Also, just want to point out, I predicted Georgia was going to win this game, so it's me, the guy that always predicts correctly.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, I think a lot of it, we sort of hinted at it or talked about it briefly earlier, but I think a lot of it is Bill O'Brien can't be trusted in pressure situations. What you ultimately found is Bill O'Brien got on the biggest stage for college football. He knows that people, GMs, ownership, or whatever, are looking at him to be a potential head coach for their franchise. And now he's like, oh man, I've got to show him my stuff. I got to show him how great my play calling is. I got to show him how I can make this fantastic game plan against one of the best defenses we've ever seen in college football. He got too cutesy. He forgot about his running back. And what ended up happening is that, and again, I don't think Bryce Young had, really a terrible game, but I think it was super tough for him. I think that offensive line didn't do a good job of picking up some of those blitz coverages that sort of came through as well. But at the end of the day, man, There is not a world where I am trusting Bill O'Brien with my football team's play calling, my team's management, the ability to assess player talent. We're talking about the guy that traded DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, arguably one of the best receivers in the National Football League when he is healthy. At worst, top three. At worst, top three when he's healthy. You traded him for a running back? Not even a top running back, and then also a second round pick, or what was it? You didn't even you can't get a first round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. You got an old bag of chips and a second round draft pick. Come on now. There's no world where I trust Bill O'Brien.
And 100% because he's one of the retreads that always gets talked about. He's going to have an NFL head coaching job.
100%.
There's enough out there, and let's move this. Well, I don't want to. We'll talk about this in a second. I'm going to hold Bill O'Brien for a second. Coming off this win, Georgia and Alabama already 1-2 for next year.
Yeah.
Is there an end to this at any point? Nick Saban, the Nick Saban essentially talent train that runs in Alabama, the Georgia talent. To be fair, you could argue Georgia has more overall talent on their squad without having the stars that Alabama has. But they're both going to be graduating a ton. Well, I won't say graduating. They're both going to be moving a ton of people into the NFL, and Nick Saban especially. And they're already 1-2 next year after they're losing some big time talent. Do you see an end to this anytime soon?
I think in college football, there's like a 3-year swing window, right? You rarely see a team that has been a powerhouse for a while sort of drop off after a single year. There's always sort of like, okay, maybe they have a down year. You look at the second year, see how they sort of rebound or what they essentially do. And then the third year is really the year of like, we either right the ship or we end up going nowhere. You don't really see many of like the LSUs where LSU was stock full of talent. They had Joe Burrow, they had Jefferson, they had all those guys ultimately, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then all of a sudden it's just like, and then Orgeron is just up out of there. That's very rare in college football, and there's other things that obviously led to that. Alabama, I think, has a harder time to fall off just because Saban's name is just etched in stone. Saban walks in any living room in the continental United States, and every single parent is like, I want my kid to play for you. Yep. Like that is going to happen until the end of time, until they start losing 3-4 games a season, which is going to be really tough. Georgia, there's an easier chance for them to fall off. I still think they're going to be fine for the next couple of years. But again, let's not forget about, like, it wasn't too long ago that Florida was a national powerhouse. Florida was pumping out talent. Florida was getting the bread and butter out of the state of Florida, especially in that Miami area that was coming to Florida. And then all of a sudden, things got difficult. I will say, if we start seeing other college programs, like if Miami has a resurgence and some of that South Florida talent all of a sudden isn't making its way, up north into Alabama, then it's going to be a little bit harder because that pool gets a little bit more diluted. And so I really just want to see what Saban is doing. But we're going to see California, some of that talent that made its way to Alabama, like Bryce Young. The state of California has made some better hires in the coaching standpoint. They should keep some of that talent there. The state of Florida is looking to keep some of that talent there. The state of Texas is going to be keeping some of that talent there. So I want to see how Saban and a lot of the SEC rebounds for not being able to pull some of those kids. But I still think you'd be 3 years out from any program having any major fall off.
And just to wrap this up, talk to me about this Stetson Bennett interview on Good Morning America. My guy showed up and looked like he had partied hard the night before. What in the world? If you're Georgia, why do you let this man walk on a Good Morning America like this?
Yeah, whoever the PR director is for Georgia football, what are you doing? Like, Stetson Bennett looked like when you're in Fight Night Champion. You know the mechanic in Fight Night Champion where you're laying on the mat and you have to like tilt yourself up and time it? He literally looked like he was stuck sideways, leaning the whole time. It was funny because I'm looking at him and you can tell that they're asking him questions, and before he answers, he's like, "Man, I'm so hungover right now. Like, I just need some water. Like, get that kid some water." But if you're gonna do the interview the day after, do that thing at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern. Give that kid an opportunity to sleep 12 hours, to not look unbelievably hungover, and let him drink some water, because I was dying laughing watching that.
Yeah, he had a couple of Eli Manning moments I saw. He closed his eyes, and I was like, that right there, I've seen that face on a Giants bench looking into a Microsoft Surface tablet.
Yeah,
Guaranteed 100%. That's Ole Miss through and through. Talking about now, we talked about Bill O'Brien. We talked about a bunch. We're gonna be talking about a bunch of firings. Black Friday or Black Monday happened in the NFL. If you guys don't know what that is, it's the Monday after the regular season ends is essentially when every head coach that deserves to be fired, and in this case, one or two that probably didn't deserve to be fired, get handed their walking papers, including a couple GMs. Let me just go down the list here. The list that I have right here is Matt Nagy from the Chicago. This was expected, I think, a long time. His play calling has been just worse and worse around Justin Fields. Vic Fangio in Denver went down. Mike Zimmer went down in Mike Zimmer goes down in Minnesota, but they're going to extend Kirk Cousins. Just whatever. Joe Judge was the latest victim in New York. I'll talk about that in a second because I don't know that that's 100% for me. But I think the most surprising firing has to be Brian Flores in Miami, right?
It's one of those things where you see that tweet come through. I think I saw it come through on Schefter's account, and my immediate response was, "Oh, that's a fake account."
Yeah.
Like, let me click on it. And then I see the verified check mark when I click on it. And I'm like, wait, like the Dolphins literally fired Brian Flores, a dude who has beaten Belichick God knows how many times in a row now or each season. He also won, was it 7 of their last 8 or 8 of their last 9, whatever that essential stat was. I don't care if you won 7 out of your last 8 or 8 out of your last 9. The verdict in that area is you're very good, okay? Yeah. The Dolphins roster has not been great at all. They've had so many issues, especially at quarterback. Their quarterback situation, they have a dude, Tua has been injured. We don't really know what we have out of Tua yet as an NFL player fully. And Tua's ability to throw the ball deep or across field has not been great at all. So you look at the roster that he has, and you just wonder how you're winning those games, and you see how those players are reacting to him. Some NFL franchise is going to get a really, really good head coach. And I'm not saying this is the same parallel, but to me, it's kind of like when the Browns let Belichick go, right? They didn't view him as a great talent, but someone is going to get Brian Flores in their organization, and I hope he chooses the right organization. And they're going to get one heck of a football coach who's going to have his players love him. He's going to find a way to maximize talent for players that aren't maybe as good as they possibly should be when the GMs are not doing what they essentially should be doing. Also, how do you keep the Dolphins GM? What are you doing, Miami?
I will say this, Brian, and that apparently from the stories out of Miami are that Brian Flores and the Dolphins front office did not get along, and that's why Brian Flores is gone. But I want you to think about this: the 3 years that Flores was there, he started 5-11, 5-11 in 2019, right? Okay, normal Dolphins.
Sure.
10-6 last year. They were 10-6 last year, and just missed the playoffs, and 9-8 this year with a much harder schedule. The fact that Brian Flores is not in Miami after seeing what he did, first of all, without Tua part of the season, then bringing Tua back in, a very good defense, but that offensive line was missing players most of the year. He was bringing up Jalen Waddle in terms of, involving him as a rookie wide receiver. By the end of the year, I mean, Jamar Chase, we're going to talk about awards here. Jamar Chase probably going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jalen Waddle, by the end of the year, may have been the best rookie receiver week to week, considering what he had to work with. But again, Brian Flores, now I want to move on to Joe Judge here for a second, because I do want to talk about Joe Judge was fired with the New York Giants. I think he's the last one fired so far. Matter of fact, I think there was an article out that he was going to get saved, and then went into an interview or went into a meeting and the Mars came out of that with, "Hey, we're letting him go."
Yeah.
I don't know that Joe Judge should have been fired. And a lot of that is based on Saquon Barkley has been not on the field most of the time. He was missing a ton of receivers this year. Daniel Jones in and out of the lineup a little bit. Offensive line, I don't think personnel-wise they gave him anything to work with, and I'm not 100% sure that he should have taken the fall for this team, who apparently they're going to stick with Daniel Jones here for a minute unless another head coach comes in and says, "That's not my guy." Do the Giants, you really think Joe Judge should have fallen on the sword for this one?
I have a problem with what happened in New York because I'm blaming Gettleman, I think, for this one.
Agreed. Well, he's gone too.
Well, Gettleman retired, okay,
Right.
which is the coward's way out because you don't want to get fired. You don't want that in your resume. So you go out and say, "Oh, I retired." You were getting fired, buddy. There's no shot that you weren't going to get fired based on the performance and the roster you've essentially assembled at that stage. Look, when I met with Saquon Barkley, we did that video for Madden and Xbox last year. Even when we talked then, like he was talking super high of like Joe Judge. Even we were talking like just playing Madden or whatever. He was talking about like what Coach Judge's like philosophy was, and like kicking, not kicking, going for stuff or whatever. And like what I gather from Saquon is that he genuinely respected Coach Joe Judge. Now again, that could have just been because he's talking to a random YouTube guy or whatever, but who knows? But I still feel like Judge should have had an opportunity to do sort of one more year. The hard part with that though is like even if he gets one more year, Daniel Jones has moments where you're like, okay, there's maybe some potential here, but a lot more moments I think where you're just like, this isn't necessarily working, I think. And so when you don't have, to your point, a healthy Saquon, when your quarterback situation is not exactly ideal, when you're dealing with a variety of injuries, especially across your receiving core for the good majority of the season or the vast majority of the season. I think they brought in Kenny Galladay this year and he had no receiving touchdowns, if I remember correctly. So like your top receiving guy that you brought in didn't have a single receiving touchdown, injuries and things of that nature obviously impacting him. It's just not an ideal thing. And part of me feels like they just wanted to gut the entire organization and be like, look, we're doing a deep clean. We're going to refresh hard. But no matter what coach or GM comes in, Daniel Jones is still your quarterback. You don't go out and find really good starting quarterbacks in free agency. It is very, very rare for that to happen, especially a young one. So the Giants are still going to be playing for, I guess, a top 5 draft pick next year. I don't know what they're doing.
A lot of rumors around Jim Harbaugh coming out of Michigan to the NFL. Do you see that happening? Do you see Jim Harbaugh as an NFL coach next year?
Harbaugh will come back. If Harbaugh came back, I feel like it would have to be, there's two teams that make sense. The Raiders, or more important, I think the Bears. And the Bears, if they were to give him some level of GM control, but I think they left, was it Pace? I think is the guy that's the GM for the Bears. With him still being there, I don't think it happens. But again, you have the lineage of like Harbaugh playing for the Bears as a quarterback or whatever, and coming there being the head coach, trying to turn that franchise back around. If I'm Harbaugh, I don't leave college. You go to the NFL, players don't care about you, right? Like some of them will, but at the end of the day, you have a much better job. You are idolized as a college coach when you're in college. When you're in the NFL, fans and players alike do not trust or care about you. Stay in college, get your money, and don't come back to the NFL where you are going to have a really tough hill.
One shot in chat just said Pace got fired as well, and that was a recent thing. So,
okay.
So they are starting from scratch with again Justin Fields. I mean, like I'm still not sold on Justin Fields after seeing him, but again, seeing with what Nagy had going on, you can't get a good vibe of what Justin Fields has or doesn't have. That's where I think so. Talking about the Raiders real quick, I do want to bring up one thing. So Rich, I'm gonna call it. I'm trying to try this one. I think it's Bisaccia. Rich Bisaccia, the interim head coach for when Gruden got fired, he brought this team and pushed them into the playoffs. And again, we might as well just move on to week 18. Do you think Bisaccia's earned a job with what he's done this season?
I mean, I think you have to, right? If you don't give him the job, then you run the risk of like, oh, what's going to happen with, a new coach coming in? Do they clean out? Do they get rid of him? And then he goes to another team. Then you're dealing with that whole fallout at that point.
Right.
I think you give him an opportunity to coach in the following season. You don't have to give this dude a massive contract or anything crazy. You just pay John Gruden enough that his great grandchildren are going to be obviously millionaires at that point. Give the dude an opportunity, especially if they win their first playoff game, which would be huge and obviously very difficult at the same time. You have to give them an opportunity. Now, the Chargers are somewhat to blame for that, which we'll talk about. But at the end of the day, like a win is a win. And if he's rallying those players and they're feeling, confident within his coaching ability, give that dude a shot to run for another year and see what happens.
I think they may have the best first round matchup for upset potential. But we'll talk, like you said, we'll talk about that here in a second. I do want to talk about week 18. We talked about our previews for all that. And the big story was, hey, if a lot of things go right, maybe the Chargers and the Raiders kneel it out for the tie. So I want to talk first about the game that started this entire controversy. Indianapolis goes into Jacksonville. They have not won in Jacksonville now in 6 years. They go in. All they have to do is win, and they're in. Carson Wentz has probably his worst game of the season. Jonathan Taylor went essentially missing, and I don't know that it was Jonathan Taylor's fault, but they were down 2 to 3 scores early. Jacksonville, again, without Urban Meyer, looks almost dangerous. Almost dangerous in this game. So this, how do you talk about this? The Colts have the defensive talent. By the way, the Colts went into Arizona with nobody, literally nobody, and beat one of the best teams in the NFL. Okay? How is this Colts team just lay this egg against the Jaguars?
It's lemon booty, man. Look, Carson Wentz, I have a slight bias against him because he went to North Dakota State. As a James Madison Go Dukes fan, I always am going to hate and feel impartial towards North Dakota State players. I don't trust Carson Wentz in the clutch, and I know that there's going to be some blame to Frank Reich or whatever. Like, I get it, but I don't trust Carson Wentz in big games. I know that people go like, but he's a Super Bowl champion, good game, bro. I don't care, okay? Carson Wentz won a Super Bowl because Nick Foles literally had a bigger jockstrap and said, look, I'm going to go out here and take this franchise by the reins and absolutely go out there and dominate. Carson Wentz was having a great season leading up to that. I totally get that. But I feel the same way about Carson Wentz in the clutch that I feel about Kirk Cousins in the clutch. It is only a matter of time before something fails you. And not every single time, but the majority of the time, Carson Wentz is going to leave you frustrated if he's the quarterback for your franchise, and that's just not a dude that I want to trust in those moments.
I agree. I think Carson Wentz has been resting on the laurels of that half a year where he was playing at an MVP level before he got hurt. I just don't know that Carson Wentz is going to be the answer for the Colts. And I think they're stuck there now, and the Eagles are obviously happy as hell because they're going to have the Colts pick, which looks like it's going to be the top half of the first round. So Colts Jaguars, the Titans beat the Texans last minute, by the way. They almost blew that game. So the Titans are going to go in get a first round bye in the AFC, plus the King now gets a week more rest before coming into the second round. Tell me how. Well, hold on. Let me finish week 18 first. 49ers beat the Rams. They solidify their spot. They're going to face the Cowboys. But then we start talking about the night game, okay? Pittsburgh beats Baltimore, so Pittsburgh is in as long as the Chargers and the Raiders don't tie, right? So the Raiders go up 10-0. Halftime, it's 21-14. They come back. The Chargers are winning. Then all of a sudden, tie game. The tie game after the fourth quarter, and social media goes absolutely bazonkers, okay? Everybody's praying, just kneel the ball. Just kneel the ball. Stop doing this. Just kneel the ball in overtime. But there was absolutely a chance for this to happen, all right? So the Raiders come down, they get stopped, they kick a field goal, right?
Yep.
The Chargers come down, they kick a field goal. They kick back off to the Raiders. The Raiders are driving the ball down with under a minute left, and the clock starts ticking, and it looks like the Raiders are going to let it run out, okay? Brandon Staley, in what should be viewed as a fireable offense, calls a timeout to stop the clock. After the game, I want to give you the two excuses that were used. By the way, I'm going to say this again. It looked like the Raiders were content to run the clock out right there, okay? Even if they get one more snap off, it was going to be a run. Brandon Staley stated that he called the timeout because he didn't have the personnel group he wants on the field. I get that. I understand that, but you have to read. It's about reading the room. Read the room, Brandon Staley. You have to understand, it's pretty obvious the Raiders are not going to push the issue. They're not going to take a chance of you doing something stupid and maybe returning a blocked field goal or intercepting the ball and them getting kicked out of the playoffs. They're just out of Carlson's range, right? Staley calls a timeout. The Raiders, Derek Carr admits after the game that the timeout did change their philosophy. He didn't say what the original philosophy was. He said the timeout absolutely had something to do with how this game ended. They come back out. Josh Jacobs gets 10 yards on a run, gets into Carlson's range. The Raiders kick a field goal to knock the Chargers out of the playoffs, and the Raiders will actually skip up to the 6th seed because of this, leaving the Steelers going into Kansas City. Brandon Staley should have been fired after the game. Anybody watching that game in the Chargers organization, Brandon Staley should have been kicked out. He shouldn't even been able to look at the team. The owner should have walked into Justin Herbert, who had one of the games of his life, showing why he's one of the best up-and-coming quarterbacks, and said, "I'm sorry, it won't happen again."
I would have loved, like, I've been in a locker room, when you've had bad losses or frustrating losses, or when you had a heartbreaking loss, right? And a heartbreaking loss from we tried our best, but a team was just a little bit better than us. I can't imagine, like, I'm sure Mike McCarthy can write a book on how to tell bad clock management, losses, and stories and things of that nature. But for Staley, like, I don't know how you address your team after this. Like, how do you genuinely go to them and be like, well, it's a heck of a season, guys, but, like, you get an early summer vacation. Like, how do you go to your team at that stage and just be like, well, sorry, I called a timeout. Like, you messed up. You've got to take ownership. But I mean, I don't know if I agree that he should have been fired, but I would not have been shocked had they fired him. Like, I could have seen a world where they fired him, and I would have been like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, you make a dumb play like that, it's bound to something happen to you. That dude should just get on his hands and knees and pray that Justin Herbert stays on his side. More than anything else, pray that Herbert stays on your side and says, I still want him to be my head football coach. Because the way Herbert has played those last couple of weeks of the season, especially that game, I think they had like a 4th down where he threw an unbelievable dot that he had no business completing. And the probability of that was probably like 1% to get that pass in there. When you have a guy that talented who is doing the things that he's doing, pray to the long-haired Justin Herbert that he still wants you as his football coach. Because the moment he doesn't, you're out of there, buddy.
Justin Herbert has the talent that he had this year. Mike Williams, that defense who fought through everything this year, the fact that they did not get into the playoffs because Brandon Staley had to overthink a time management position, which is something he has done multiple times this year. He has had time management issues. By the way, can I ask a question? How in the world do hundreds upon thousands of Madden players know how to time manage a game, and head coaches just can't get it through their heads? John Harbaugh has had time management issues. Andy Reid has famous time management issues. Mike McCarthy, Brandon Staley, Mike Zimmer. How many of them, how in the world do you not have? Now, granted, I get a little distracted once in a while. Let the second half timer run out once in a while because I'm talking to chat and Madden. But so many like Madden like compros. How do you not train this into head coaches at this point? It blows my mind. You know why it blows my mind? Because none of those coaches deserves Coach of the Year. None of those coaches deserves Coach of the Year, and that's what we're going to talk about next here. Is the NFL awards will be coming up during the playoffs. They do not revolve around the playoffs. It's gonna be regular season, right? So talk to me. We're gonna leave MVP for last, even though he's up on the screen already. Coach of the Year. Who deserves Coach of the Year here?
I went back and forth in this a lot, and then when I started to break things down, I got to give it to the dude that had a number 1 seed. Albeit they barely got it. But they got it essentially with the most injuries or most players that have ever played on a roster in the NFL history this season. There are a lot of really good coaches, but in my opinion, Coach of the Year is Mike Vrabel. What he had to go through this season, it is extremely hard to argue against what he did. Yes, there are other coaches you can possibly put up for consideration, saying, oh, well, they did X, Y, and Z, or they had blah, blah, blah. No one dealt with the adversity, I feel like, from what Mike Vrabel did, and he still found a way to get a number 1 seed. Even though they walked into it last second, he's my Coach of the Year.
I'm going to do you one better. You ready for this?
I'm going
to you have a problem with this one. I think Nick Sirianni deserves it.
I don't hate that. He's my second pick.
Yeah, he's only 9-8, but what he did with that Eagles team with a rookie. Now, granted, top 10 pick rookie, okay? Top 10 pick. Okay, I get that. But with a rookie wide receiver, Jalen Hurts, who, let's be fair, they're running a different offense with Jalen Hurts, okay?
I'm not going down the 10-minute argument we're going to have about this.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're running a different offense with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts obviously is QB1 and should be on that team, okay? I will fully say that. Miles Sanders was hit and miss this year. Boston Scott jumped in and out of the lineup. I just think with what he had on that table, that defense, the fact that defense was as effective as it is incredible. Incredible. So I do think Sirianni deserves votes, at least votes, if he doesn't win Coach of the Year. He probably won't, because honestly, wildcard teams at 9-8 normally don't get to the Coach of the Year. But what he did with what he had, I think is incredibly, incredibly impressive.
Yeah, agreed. I don't hate the Sirianni pick. He would have been, at worst, a top 3 guy for me in that thing. But I feel like the stuff that Vrabel went through, especially losing the front runner for MVP at that point, even though people are like, running backs can't win MVP. Yeah. I think Henry was at that point the front runner for MVP. Losing him, the stuff they've gone through, the other injuries they've had across, especially in the defensive line for them, and still finding a way to get that number 1 seed, that gave him the number 1 piece for me.
Just for the chat real quick, I do want to bring this up, is Zach Taylor with the Cincinnati Bengals. I actually don't agree with that, because really? I think Zach Taylor's made so many mistakes this year. I think Zach Taylor, for me, Coach of the Year doesn't cost your team games. Like, personnel can cost you games. But I do think that Zach Taylor has cost the Bengals games this year. Okay, I think his game planning, I think his play, when he gets play call for that, and I think the Bengals have a ton of talent on that team. Joe Burrow, you could argue that the Bengals have one of the best receiving corps in the NFL right now, with T. Higgins, Taj Boyd, and Jamar Chase. And even with CJ Uzama as a tight end was used very well this year, with Joe Mixon, who was one of the top rushers. Their defense has always been pretty good, like being able to hold up. Whatever you can say about an NFL defense this year, I don't think there are such a thing as a dominant NFL defense anymore. I think he has cost them more games than they've won. Yes, they won the North this year. Fully agree with that. I do think that he is going to be the reason they lose in the playoffs. I don't think the Bengals are going to get blown out. I don't think they're going to get beat by their players or by a more talented team. I think Nick Taylor or Zach Taylor is going to cause the Bengals off a coaching flub in the playoffs.
Well, okay.
So, I don't want to go too far into it, but let's see here. Go offensive rookie of the year for me. Who do you think?
I mean, there's one choice. Yeah. If you choose anyone other than Jamar Chase, you're drunk.
I agree.
Like, there's no other way around it.
I agree. Defensive rookie of the year. This might get a little more interesting.
I think the more I go Micah Parsons.
I actually agree with you.
Yeah.
For everything he did in terms of on that Dallas field, being able to move so many different positions. He was rushing the passer at one point. He has played safety. He's played rover. He's played inside linebacker. He has essentially become what the Patriots do with every outside linebacker they get, and become like a jack of all trades. I want to bring up Adalius Thomas, but like honestly, that's kind of a throwback reference. Micah Parsons, I think, absolutely deserves Defensive Rookie of the Year in this case.
Yeah.
Go with Offensive Player of the Year. Give me your best offensive player.
I mean, this one is tough, because I think more often than not, this is going to line up with who my MVP is at this point.
It happens a lot. It happens a lot, doesn't it?
And when part of me wanted to say, like, do I go with, like, I give Jonathan Taylor like a thing, but then how the end of the season went, which I don't, to your point, I think you mentioned earlier, I don't think the end of the year, the final game, week 18, was really all Jonathan Taylor's fault. I think we can blame the coaching staff at that point for just sort of a myriad of things. But I feel like for me, if I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers for Offensive Player of the Year, how efficient he was with the football.
Yeah.
Battling through the injury to whatever extent you want to argue with that, especially after week 1 when everyone wrote that dude off. And I was one of the people saying that Rodgers is going to be fine. This is Aaron Rodgers. He has bad games starting out the beginning of the season. But the way Rodgers battled the season on the field, I will give him my Offensive Player of the Year.
I'm gonna bring up a couple. I think Rodgers ends up in another conversation. So I'm actually gonna say it wasn't him. I'm gonna say Jonathan Taylor of the Colts wins it. but I think you see a ton of votes for Cooper Kupp out in LA.
Oh,
I think
valid.
what Cooper Kupp has done this year is nothing short of crazy, especially considering what we've seen out of Matthew Stafford the last couple of weeks. We've seen Matthew Gofford a couple of weeks. We've seen Matthew Stafford a couple of weeks. Like, we don't know what Stafford we're getting at any point. And for Kupp to be as consistent as he's been throughout the season, especially at receiver, where a lot of teams will try to double cover the number one receiver. And don't get me wrong, Robert Woods was there. Odell Beckham has been there on the other side. They've got a very good Higbee is a good tight end.
Sure.
But you have to think that Kupp is doing this through, and he's not just a deep guy. That's the other thing here, is that Kupp is not a deep guy. Kupp is an underneath route running threat. I believe. So I really think that Kupp deserves that. I see it in the chat, Davante Adams. Maybe. I know
I go Kupp over Adams on that list.
I think so this year. Yeah, definitely. I think Davante Adams has had years, and I know Davante Adams had a very, very good year. I think what Kupp has done and the style of player he is allows him to get into those votes. I agree that I think it's Jonathan Taylor, probably Taylor, Rodgers, Kupp in that order for 1 through 3. This is going to be a little bit of an argument. I can already know. Defensive player of the year, okay? I will say that there are some polarizing choices at the top of this board.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be a homer, but I can't really go against TJ Watt, considering he missed, I think, 3 or 4 games this year. TJ Watt was incredible. I think there's always going to be an argument for Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald has won it, I don't know, like 3 or 4 times in the last like 5 years, or something crazy like that. But the way that Watt played this year, it was just absolutely phenomenal. So I have to give him a ton of credit at that point.
I'm going to bring up, there are people that are talking about Trayvon Diggs because of his interception count. I want to bring up again that Trayvon Diggs is also top 3 in yards allowed. I still think he's one of the top cornerbacks, if not the top cornerback in the league this year. But I do think that's a problem. I think Myles Garrett deserves it more than TJ Watt. And maybe that's me. I feel like there's more on that Steeler defense. As the season went on, I feel like there's more backup on that Steeler defense. I know they were missing Pruitt for part of the year and Hayward at parts of the year. But I think there's more on that Steelers defense that helps TJ Watt, and I think it's more designed to him. Whereas Myles Garrett, they essentially just put him down in the 3-tech and go, hey, go get the quarterback. Go work. Go work. I mean, he's not just the quarterback, too. Like, he's an absolute monster at setting the edge for running, too. I think Myles Garrett deserves this. I do think that Micah Parsons is going to be in this conversation as well.
Yeah.
For what he's done in Dallas, I think because he gets Defensive Rookie of the Year, I think that's going to hurt him in Defensive Player of the Year, because I think a lot of voters don't believe you can get both.
Yep.
That being said, I think Micah Parsons does come up in this talk a lot.
Yeah, I just hope we don't see Trevon Diggs. And again, Diggs had, to your point, a great season. But when you're giving up that, I think he gave up, it was like he was top 3 for most yards given up or something insane. He essentially is the cornerback version of Deshaun Jackson when he was in his prime, of a dude that is boom or bust for you. He is going to make plays that are going to blow your mind. He's going to blow the top off defenses, I guess in this case, offenses in this case. But just that ability to give up so many yards and coverage, double moves were killing him all year long. I think he will figure that out, and he will work on his technique a lot more for some of that stuff. But I have so many guys listed above him. And I mean, I don't hate the Myles Garrett pick, but I just feel like TJ Watt, the games that he missed, still with that high production. Yes, there were some great players helping out on the defensive line for the Steelers, but there were also some injuries in the Steelers across the board. Great. So I factor that in and give him a slight nod for that.
Agreed. Question: If Trayvon Diggs does the same thing next year, top 5 yards given up, but like continues to get double-digit interception counts, does he ever get into that Defensive Player of the Year conversation, or do you have to cut down the yardage to do that as a cornerback?
I think you have to cut down the yardage a little bit, right? You can't be in that sort of upper echelon of yards given up. But we also live in a highlight society, right? So if you're getting the interceptions, if you're getting 1 or 2 of those, maybe even 3 of those returned for a touchdown, you're going to get a lot of people to look past that and be like, yo, I know he's giving up yards, but look at what he also did to sort of like add points or add something that's going to essentially put them in good field position.
Right.
I do think the Cowboys are going to do a lot more to help out the safety position because they know they're going to need something over the top for him, for especially double moves where his Achilles heel this year. So I don't expect him to give up as many yards next year simply because of that. But I think he will still find a way if he can keep this kind of production to be in that conversation.
I honestly believe that at some point, Micah Parsons is going to find himself out at that strong safety position permanently. I think the Cowboys are very aware that if they keep him where he's playing, kind of down on the inside, I think it's going to wear more on him, and it's going to cause his career to be much shorter. With as fast,
costs more money too.
Oh no, absolutely going to cost more money, especially if he becomes, a sack machine, and because he's got a nose for the ball too. He's got a nose for the ball too. Don't forget about that. So I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't surprise me if they could bring in more pass rushers and kind of back Parsons off into that strong safety position that's becoming way sexier in the NFL these days.
Sure.
That strong safety that goes about 10, 15 yards around the middle allows him to, kind of pick balls off or attack the quarterback on design blitzes and stuff like that. So
and give concussions across the middle when people
absolutely.
go across. I would not want to go across the middle with him there.
No. Especially not with how quickly he moves. It's not just top speed. He gets the top speed incredibly fast. So I think that's going to be something to watch for the Cowboys in the offseason. I think they're happy with where Parsons is right now, but I don't think they want him consistently in the trenches or even within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So, now, interesting story, and this just started breaking today, so I want to talk to you about this. DJ Williams, of Denver Bronco fame, but also had Josh McDaniels as his head coach. And there's been a lot of talk about Josh McDaniels ever since Deflategate, all kinds of different things about how Belichick has taught that tree, right? I want you to listen to a little bit. We're not going to play the whole thing, but I do want you to listen just a little bit to what DJ Williams said today on the I Am Athlete podcast, all right? Let me see if I can get it right here.
And so we did that for 6 weeks.
Yeah, facts.
Wait, hold on. I'm about to, here come the twist.
This is mind-blowing to me, by the way.
We get to San Francisco.
This story was swept under the rug when it came out in 2010-ish, I think.
Yeah.
So when we saw this, it was kind of a mind-blowing.
Now, you can hear that, right? Just make sure. I want to make sure you can hear that, right? Or you can't. Let me throw this in here for you, too. Because I want you to hear this, too.
Losing to San Francisco. We're supposed to beat San Francisco.
Okay.
Here's what happened. Our film guy got caught because we had to share a stadium. Got caught filming their practice.
This is in London.
Way.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Spygate?
Say it again. That's the
Wait.
way.
Spygate? Our film guy got caught filming their practice. 1 week later, Josh is fired.
Now, right there.
Josh tried to.
Right there. At this point, that team is 6-0. That team is 6-0, and he talked about earlier in this podcast where Josh McDaniels told him on a specific play, run to this spot. No, it wasn't even a specific play. They were in practice. They were in practice, and he said, if you see this look, run to this spot. If you turn around in time, you'll have an interception. If you don't, the ball's going to hit you in the back of the head. And apparently the ball hit him in the back of the head. It was the exact same way McDaniels said so. And he thought McDaniels was a genius. But listen to this.
To say the film guy, who was his boy that he grew up with, I had whatever. We started out, I believe we started out 6-0.
Yeah, there it is, 6-0.
8-8. After that.
So 6-0. McDaniels gets fired. That team ends up 8-8 and looked lost on defense. Absolutely lost on defense, even though McDaniels is more of an offensive coordinator. Like, it keeps coming up. Spygate keeps coming up for this New England team and for New England and the people that come out of there. How in the world have they not? It should have been taken way more seriously than it was. And this is a player confirming it should have.
Yep. This is wild to me. If you remember, so I did a little bit of research before the podcast or before the show. The Patriots were convicted in the NFL court of running this sort of Spygate cheat system from the year 2000 to the year 2005, right? They were penalized $250,000. I think they were fined a first-round draft pick, if I remember correctly. Something along that sort of like compensation package, but in reverse, right? Whatever the reverse of compensation is.
Right.
This is a half a season sort of instance, but technically not half a season. The NFL only said it was a single game action, and they fined them $50,000 for a single game action. This is 5 years after the Patriots' last infraction of doing this. So you're saying a single game 5 years later is worth $50,000 for one of the biggest black eyes for the NFL in a very long time, right? Outside of CTE and things of that nature.
Right.
But the Patriots doing over the course of 5 seasons is $250,000. So 5x that math doesn't really correlate for me at that point. What's crazy is, so the guy that the camera guy that was hired was also, he said, McDaniel's boy, worked for the Patriots during Spygate. They were both there essentially the same time, or roughly the same exact time. They caught him because they were playing in London, only because they were playing in London and they were using the same stadium, obviously, everything, which is probably Wembley, if I had to imagine at that point. They pulled him at that point. If you remember when McDaniels did the press conference afterwards, he was sort of smug and dismissive and just, whatever. And apparently that didn't sit well with ownership. But the fact that we now have, to your point, players coming out, a player in DJ Williams coming out and confirming, like, this happened the whole season. And then he says at the end of it, I knew our team was trash. I knew we weren't any good. And so I wasn't surprised we ended up 8-8 and lost, 6 out of their last 8 games ended up losing. How this is not a bigger story is unbelievable to me. And Josh McDaniels, again, we made fun of Bill O'Brien at the beginning of the show about Bill O'Brien as someone who gets retreaded nonstop and thrown out for opportunities that he does not deserve. His body of work shows that he does not deserve these opportunities. You could argue McDaniels is the same guy that does not do that. Outside of New England, what has he done?
And that's the weird thing is, like, every time he goes back under Bill's wing, he's right back to being offense. Like that offense this year had no business being anywhere near as good as it was. Don't get me wrong. They're not amazing. They're running with a rookie quarterback that's a game manager at this point, had some decent games. I will say they won a game throwing the ball 3 times. And Bill Belichick got a lot of the credit for that, but that's a Josh McDaniel game plan. Like that was instituted. He's not a good head coach. I think he's a fantastic offensive coordinator. And I think that's kind of
why is he a fantastic coordinator?
Right, but now we have to ask that question. When Bill Belichick retires, will there always be a cloud around him? I don't think so, and that's the thing. I think some people will always hate him because, it's the dark, it's the empire, it's grouchy Bill Belichick. But I think the biggest thing about Belichick, and the reason this goes under the rug, is because they win. I think to really take a black eye in the NFL as a coach, you have to lose. I think at some point, if you start losing consistently, then all those little things start popping up. Deflategate, not talked about after like a month or two. Because what? Because they won. Bill Belichick, one of the winningest coaches of all time. Why is Spygate not talked about? Why is the cheating not talked about? Why is the consistent? Everyone is. They had headset issues in New England for visiting teams, multiple visiting teams. Like, that's a consistent thing. Why is it not talked about? Because they win. Okay? And I think that's why you don't hear about it. The NFL just like, you know what? Just not talk about this. We don't need anything else going on. Let's just sweep this one under the rug.
What's also interesting, and I forgot to mention earlier, so there's video that's floating around Twitter right now of McDaniels after a game where they beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's Todd Haley who was coaching the Chiefs at the time. Mm-hmm. And when they go to shake hands, McDaniel has his hand out like, hey there, buddy. And Todd Haley says, he doesn't shake his hand. He keeps his hands by his side and says, they're talking about you. Everyone's talking about you. Implying they knew what he was doing in terms of having these practices filmed and using all that information and sort of putting that within his game plan. So I would not be surprised if more teams were doing this. I do think at some point there's going to be a larger expose that happens on Belichick post him being out of the game. I think too many people are afraid to say things about Belichick because of the things he's done and doors he's opened for him. But I think at some point, once Belichick is retired, some player, some assistant, some whatever who didn't have things pan out their way is going to come forward and give us some information that is going to cause a whole lot of questions about Bill Belichick's legacy and then Tom Brady's legacy therein as well.
Won't happen. You know why? Because Belichick doesn't leave loose ends. He'll find a way.
Why do we have Spygate and Deflategate?
No. That wasn't Belichick. I think that was an assistant coach. I'm telling you, Belichick will find a way to shut everybody up. I'm telling you right now. Hey, what happened to Robert Kraft? Remember those allegations? What happened to Robert Kraft? Nothing. Am I wrong?
I feel like it has more to do with Kraft than it does with Belichick, because Kraft obviously has a ton of power, a ton of money. I feel like he's more of the one.
I'm okay with that then. I'm okay with that then, and I think Kraft's going to keep Belichick nice and tight. I don't think you have to worry about that, for better or worse, mind you. I'm not saying it's the right thing or the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So Ja Morant, let's talk about this for a second, because this dude is taking the NBA by storm all season. People have questioned him. People question his size, but the dude could jump out of the gym. They question his shooting coming out, which was inconsistent at times. He's now shooting fine. They contested that maybe he's not the right point guard fit for teams. I mean, at this point, if it's not Steph, who has admittedly struggled a little bit recently, and probably, people don't talk about this, with Clay coming back, Steph will probably fall back a little bit in stat, because he doesn't have to. And let's be fair, they care about a championship there. They've never been about individual stats. That's a Steve Kerr staple.
Well, I think Curry does want MVP, because if you remember the last 2 seasons, Curry's had a lot of slander thrown his way. I think he does want MVP.
I can see that. So, Ja Morant, the Grizzlies are already 29 wins in. Okay, how many wins did they have last year? 38 wins. So they're already at 29 wins. 29 and 14, right? They have won out of their last 10. It is, what is it?
10 out of 10. They haven't lost their last 10 games. They haven't lost since December 23rd against the Warriors.
And
their last loss.
He's averaging, and he's rebounding too. 25, 6, and 6, right? So, Ja Morant's for real. But are the Grizzlies?
The Grizzlies are for real. It took a little bit for me to look at them a little bit more, watch a little bit of their highlights and stuff, because I haven't watched as much of their full games as I probably wanted to at this point, partly because they don't get as much prime time TV coverage as they should. Ja Morant is absolutely for real. The swagger he's given to that team, I hate using that as like a metric or whatever, is like through the roof. Ja Morant has led that team through some absolutely intense battles. They just beat the Warriors last night, mind you. And my favorite thing about that win is Ja Morant is like on the sideline or like at the edge of the court. A kid is wearing a Steph Curry jersey in Memphis. Mm-hmm. Is begging Ja Morant for a high five, and Ja Morant is just staring that kid down. It says, "Come back with a Moran jersey." I love me some Ja Morant, and I don't want this to be taken as a negative.
Yeah,
because Ja Morant to me is what we sort of had in Westbrook for that. I'm not talking about not triple double Westbrook, but just before triple double Westbrook.
The intensity
that he sort of brought to the game was unbelievable. And what Ja is doing there, let's not sleep on Desmond Bane, by the way. Desmond Bane went from a dude who looked like he was too jacked for his jersey to now shooting and being one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA this season. And dear God, I hope he gets a chance to go in the 3-point competition, because I want to see that kid flourish. Desmond Bane has become a great player for them. Dylan Brooks has become one of the best on-ball defenders who can guard multiple positions. Probably 1 through 4, you could probably put Dylan Brooks on at that point. They have, with Triple J, they have Jaren Jackson Jr., they have so much that he's able to sort of do. He doesn't have to be, the guy that has to go down in the paint. They've been running him out on a lot of sets, letting him shoot the 3-ball a little bit, let him be more involved in the pick and roll game, some of the face-up game. I genuinely think, and we saw Memphis when they got into the postseason last year, or the play-in game, whatever it was essentially last year. Memphis is a team that you do not want to play. What is it? What was their slogan in Memphis for so long? I can't even remember. There's the photo. But the slogan they had was like grit and grind or whatever in Memphis.
Yeah, that's not what they are anymore.
Yeah, this to me feels like if you go back to like the Zach Randolph, Tony Allen era of Memphis, but if they had a potent offensive attack to go with that too. Their offense has become one of their best defensive parts. They have never had a player like Ja Morant there. And yes, I know they had Mike Conley, who was great for a long period of time, but I'm telling you, Ja Morant will be a much better player long term than what Mike Conley meant for that city. And Mike Conley meant a lot for that city. I am all in on the Grizzlies hype train. I think they're at worst top 6 in the Western Conference, which is really tough to do.
Right. I'm going to read down this. By the way, this picture in the middle is Ja Morant. looking at these kids in Warriors gear and Curry gear. I want to read to you what Ja Morant said to this, okay? You ready for this? Ja Morant, this picture going up on Twitter. Ja Morant quote tweeted this with, "Sorry, I'm just too locked in on another level." This was after the game last night he saw this. Then today, so we're clear, today he came in and was like, I remember who was cheering for me when I wasn't anyone to cheer for. This dude is another level of just, he believes in him. He will always bet on Ja. He believes in this Grizzly team. And so we're clear, this Grizzly team, Ja Morant 22, Dylan Brooks is 26. He's a veteran on this team, and he's playing really well. Desmond Bane's 23. Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the best stretch bigs in the NBA right now, is 22. DeAnthony Melton, 23. Brandon Clark, 25. Tyrus Jones, 25. My boy Kyle Anderson getting good minutes, good defensive minutes. Hey, listen, you leave Kyle Anderson alone, man. That man plays some good defense. That's a Swiss Army knife right there. Anyway, listen, I agree with you. I think the Grizzlies are for real. I think they're going to give some teams some trouble. I think where their problem is going to lie is when they go up against a team with a really good inside presence. I think that's where they start to really have a problem. I love Jaren Jackson. Jaren Jackson is going to struggle against actual bigs inside. I'm talking about the Anthony Davises of the world. Even a guy like Zion. I know that's that other conference, but like that kind of build, the big builds that are going to bang inside. I think Jaren Jackson's got to get a little bit bigger. And once that happens, or if they can get maybe an inside stopper, we talked about this with the Bulls. If the Grizzlies can get an inside force at the trade deadline, I think that makes them a top 4 team. I think
I think fair, but let's keep in mind they do have Steven Adams, and I'm not saying Steven Adams is great. Steven Adams is really more, he's going to play the role, I think, of what the Warriors and they had Zaza Pachulia, where he was just sort of like a dude to set hard screens, to make hard fouls. Let's be honest, he's going to make hard fouls in the postseason. Offensively, Steven Adams is now completely inept. He's literally Aquaman on land right now, but I don't disagree. Another big to help them inside, defensively and offensively, won't be the end of the world.
Right.
But I think just as much as they need that, they need Zaire Williams to keep playing like he's playing. That kid is starting to progress and become the kid that they thought he was going to be. And he hasn't really been in the NBA very long. So I don't know why I'm saying
24. This team is young. This team is going to be around for a while. And again, as long as Ja can stay healthy, because that's the big thing. You mentioned Russell Westbrook. He plays like Westbrook in a smaller body, okay? Westbrook is muscularly bigger. Ja needs to do the same thing. If he's going to continue to do what he does, attack the rim like he does, go after rebounds at like 14 feet in the air, or blocks at 14 feet in the air. I don't know if you guys saw that. Dude blocked it above the basket, above the square too.
The white box.
Above the white box. I was like, what? Pinned it above the white box? Dude's what, 6'4"?
I don't know if he's that. He might even be 6'2", 6'3".
Is he? Dude, I don't know, man. My guy is the fact he just jumps out of the building. He's 6'3". He is 6'3", 174. He needs to be 6'3", about 190 is what he needs to be, honestly, if he wants to continue in this league. So I agree. I think the Grizzlies, by the way, I just want to bring this up. Clay, looks like he hasn't missed a step, man. That's dangerous. That you want to talk about a dangerous team? That's a dangerous squad now.
Yeah, my thing for Clay is I want to see 10 games or after game number 10 of him returning. You need to see what his legs are looking like. You need to see how many minutes you can ultimately hold him on, because I don't think you're going to have Clay coming back and running 30 plus minutes a game. Probably doesn't happen this year. You're probably looking at like a 20 to 25 minute sweet spot at maximum once he sort of feels like he's back into more so basketball shape. But I don't think you want to push him past that just because you're coming off 2 years of injuries. I think they have to be careful to some degree, because he's going to want to go hard. You have to protect him from himself, but still try to win a game.
Agreed. It's going to be fun. Listen, the Western Conference is always a grinder when it comes to the playoffs. It's going to be fun to see the Grizzlies because they're making the playoffs and they're not going to be in the play-in game. So it's going to be fun to see what they do somewhere in the middle seeds. Like, there's going to be a 3 seed in this league. Like, if Utah, I'll be real with you, if Utah played the Grizzlies right now, I would take the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I think so too.
I love Utah offensively, but defensively, that team looks lost. I don't know what it is. It's not Gobert. It's everything else. So they're winning specific. Utah is winning right now on offensive execution, which is crazy with how bad they are defensively at this point. So that's a Quinn Snyder problem though. So we do want to make one more topic here. You see the question marks underneath there. I just want to let's just talk about this real quick. I'm gonna let you talk about it because
Yeah. So those of you that tuned in last week, a couple of things here really quick. We didn't have VODs turned on last week, and then we also forgot to hit the record button last week. So there wasn't actually a podcast episode that went out. So we take the L on that. That's on us. But this week now, VODs are turned on. I think the episode's being recorded. So
I am recording it. I'm recording it. We're an hour and 12 minutes in. Hi guys.
So we'll have this available for you on your podcast. If you missed a part or want to listen to it again because you love hearing me talk and not hearing Mills talk, you can fast forward through all that tomorrow as well. But we teased last week that we had a little bit of an announcement coming this week. And while we're not going to fully reveal what's sort of coming, we do want to say that we are adding in the near future. We don't have an exact date to give you just yet, but in the near future, we're adding a third host to the show. And we have, I believe,
this window's going to get much smaller, going to get much tighter. Listen, I'm a husky guy. You can't squeeze this window much more.
It'll be obviously, we won't just have the two panels like we have now. You have a whole nother format that you'll ultimately see when that point comes. And we'll hype it up on social media. You'll see in the bottom right corner at Overplayed Pod. It's OVRPOYD Pod. That you can go ahead and follow on Twitter. We're making some teasers, maybe some announcements there. But you can see the top right corner, there's a little teaser announcement of a little shadowy figure who's going to be our third co-host of the show. And it just, to me, it's great for a lot of different reasons, but it'll be great because it lowers the percentage that Mills can possibly talk during an episode.
No. It gives me one more person to trash talk. That's what it gets. I get one more person to really grind into. Bring them on.
Hey, Mills, I honestly, at some point, now that we have a live show, I think we need to make a highlight reel at the end of the year, all the embarrassing things you say or do, or all the bad takes you make, and just play a highlight of we just be like, just run the clip, and it's just Mills making bad take after bad take after bad take.
We just call it the Mills verse, the Mills multiverse of clips. That's what it's gonna be. It's just me just railing into people. 1 burn, 2 burn, roast this way. That's right. I'm swinging like Tom Wilson, baby. You see me? You see me?
What about like a bad glass of Mills?
Connor McMillser. That's what they call me.
Who's they? Who's they?
Everybody.
Who's they?
Don't you know? Don't you know? Come on, man. I thought I'm
literally
throw a kick here. Ready?
You're gonna break it.
See? Throwing roundhouses. We're on a live show now. Man, if you're watching video here Wednesday nights at 8 p.m., bro, you're getting full on. I'm gonna throw another roundhouse. You ready for this? Ha!
What are you doing?
These are my Bo Jackson shoes.
What a flex.
Yeah.
It's crazy that you're older than Bo Jackson.
It's not funny. Am I?
I don't think you are. But
Hold on, I'm gonna double check. You might want to wrap this show up because if I'm actually older than Bo Jackson, man, I am going to cry. Yo, Bo Jackson's 59. I'm good. He's still running up walls. I'll try to run up a wall. Matter of fact, that's the next thing. We're gonna go running up. Send me out to a baseball stadium to run up the wall and try to catch a fly ball.
The fact that you had to check is
I'm winded. Man, those kicks take a lot out of you, man.
I hate everything. But anyways, we have a third co-host coming in the very near future. No one's going to leak it. We're not going to tell you guys just yet. But more information on that very soon. Again, you can look at the teaser image. We'll tweet out the teaser image tomorrow afternoon as well, just so you can sort of see that come into play. But I know I'm excited. I don't want to speak for Mills, but I believe Mills is excited as well because he'll hear me talk less and he can make fun of me even more with this next person. But I think it'll be a great thing for the show overall.
Agreed.
But with that being said, that is the end of episode 48 of the Overplayed podcast, Overplayed show, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure you tune in. Twitch, 8 p.m. Eastern, Overplayed Pod on Twitch. If you're looking for us on Twitter, it's Overplayed, OVRPOYD Pod on Twitter. And if you're looking for your podcast, just look up Overplayed Podcast on your favorite app like Spotify, Apple, whatever Android has at that point. I'm GoodGameBro. That's Mick Foley. Catch you guys on the next one. Be safe, be smart. Tell somebody you love them. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Ciao.